Welcome back to United in Focus. Arsenal is never an easy game, but this time the talk amongst the fans isn't all doom and gloom. Yes, the result went against us, but for long spells, United really took the game to Arsenal. We saw that Amorim's ideas were clear. We saw some new signings in action, looking sharp. But for once, we came away from a defeat perhaps feeling more encouraged than deflated. I'm Dale O'Donnell, and I'm joined by Jonny Maze, Sean Fisher, and Vatsal Gupta to discuss everything that happened over the weekend and more. Okay, starting with Jonny. How did you feel about the game, Jonny? Obviously, dropping points first weekend of the season, but performance wasn't too bad.
No, I think last week on here I was sort of said the main thing was avoiding defeat, but I think we've all come out of that feeling very confident for the rest of the season. There was, a lot more good things than bad things, and I think we really did play Arsenal off the pitch for most of that game. So it's hard not to feel good about the result, not the result, but the way we played.
Sean, does it say something about Arsenal? They came to Old Trafford considered kind of title contenders, but they got an early goal and were very much defensive for the rest of the game. Does that say something about these teams now aware of United's threat after revamping their attack?
Yeah, that is an important point. Arsenal are supposed to be challenging for the title this year. They got played off the park at Old Trafford. The only goal they scored was controversial. So if we play like that for the rest of the season, I don't think we have too much to be scared about. If we play like that every single game, we're looking at top 5, top 6 finish. That's an overperformance compared to where most people expect us to finish. So yeah, we've got to take into account that we're not going to be playing Arsenal every week. They're an amazing defensive side. David Raya was exceptional. So yeah, important to take the positives and keep playing like that every week.
That said, it sounds all positive. We did lose the game, but we took the game to Arsenal. What are any of your takeaways from the game apart from that?
Yeah, I mean, we're winning the league, aren't we? But yeah, on a slightly somber note, these are the type of games that we did well last season as well. So Arsenal were beaten last season as well. So the big games were not a problem, even at our lowest ebb. So the real challenge comes in the next 3 games. So Fulham, Grimsby, and Burnley, we have to win those 3. Arsenal was a nice starter, a soft launch kind of because for an Amorim team, obviously the performance was much better. We did a smash and grab at the Emirates last season. But yeah, now we have to keep this up because top 4 is looking very possible if we perform like that every week.
Jonny, just before we move away from the Arsenal game, any other takes about Amorim's approach? Because all I noticed at the start of the game was United were doing lots of 1v1 defending at times before Arsenal got the goal. And I heard in other games, Carragher criticised Liverpool for that, although they won, that they were going too forward and leaving themselves too open at the back. With Amorim's approach, do you think it's risk and reward? Or do you think it's a little bit naive?
I think it's definitely risk and reward. I think, he wants the team to win the ball high up the pitch. So he's happy to leave those sort of 3 at the back to defend against their front 3. But no, I agree with what the guys have said, where previous years we might have beaten sort of the Arsenals of the league, the Liverpools of the league, but we've never went head to head with them. We've always sort of sat back and went forward when they were vulnerable. But yes, we made Arsenal do that. So it's definitely progress in terms of on the pitch. I just have to continue it.
It's funny because we also previously had Jose Mourinho as manager, more defensive, and people would argue then that we need to be more attacking. We need to go at teams. We're Man United and wing football and whatnot. But now we're getting attacking football. People want to be a bit more conservative. You can't win. But hopefully United can get back to winning ways. Fortunately, we can't dodge it. The other big talking point from the game is the goalkeeping issue. Altai Benadir committed an absolute howler in the 13th minute, give Arsenal that lead, that cushion that they kept for the rest of the game. I think the big letdown was that United played so well, and it was a goal like that why we dropped points. That's all. I want to come to you first on this one. Who is to blame?
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really think Bayenze was entirely at fault for the goal, because if you look at the Arsenal players, they never really tried to fight for the ball. They put 2 players just to mess with the goalkeeper. Like, yeah, Bayenze could have punched it instead of just getting that flimsy hand over there. But I think many goalkeepers struggle with that. They would struggle with that. Maybe Radek Vitek won't, but that's a big question for another day. And when you look at the whole team composition, how they've approached the set pieces, they will give many teams a lot of problems this season. So I don't think it's entirely on Binde or Amorim set piece setup. Having said that, he's obviously still to blame, but considering our upgrade is Andre Onana, I'm not very hopeful of how much of an improvement it will be against Fulham.
Sean, and on that, I think Vatsal touched on something interesting at the end. Is going into this season, there was already question marks about the goalkeepers and people saying they wanted an improvement on Onana. Onana missed the game due to not being 100%. How costly is this situation this season with goalkeepers? How important is it that United address this now before the deadline? Because having a dodgy goalkeeper, you're going to leak some points.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of surprise that we haven't signed a goalkeeper yet, but I think that's because neither Bayindir or Onana have left. I don't know about you guys, but I expected Onana to start against Arsenal. I know he didn't play much in pre-season, but whether or not that would have made a difference, I don't know. We saw Amorim kind of come out and defend Bayindir quite fiercely against the press, which I think everyone likes to see. But behind closed doors, we are linked to a lot of goalkeepers, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see us go and sign someone. Who that someone is going to be, whether we go for experience or youth and potential, I'm not quite sure yet.
Jonny, do you trust the current goalkeepers, or are you in the camp that we need an improvement?
I think I would trust Andre Onana a lot more than I would Bayindir. But then we obviously have AFCON to think about in 4 months' time. So I think it'd be naive to go into the season with Bayindir as number 2 when he's let us down so many times against the big teams.
And just on that, to come back to you, Jonny, what kind of goalkeeper should United be looking at? Because previously with David De Gea, we had a solid goalkeeper, maybe not so solid with the ball at his feet, and we wanted to change that. We went for Onana, who was a total extremely different goalkeeper. What do United need now? What's the focus? Focus for me is a goalkeeper that can stop the ball going into the back of the net. For you, do we need a goalkeeper that is good at playing out from the back, that can come and claim his line? What are the key traits that we need in a goalkeeper?
Well, I think, as you said, number 1 priority should be a goalkeeper who can keep the ball out of the back of the net. And I think the back 3 as well takes the pressure off a goalkeeper being able to play long, expansive balls, because he'll always have more than one option. I would love us to go and get Sen Lamen from Antwerp. I think if you look at his stats from last season and sort of watch clips of him, he looks like he can do it all in terms of what a traditional goalkeeper would do, rather than just being flashy on the ball.
Speaking about our new signings, we've seen Cunha and Mbeumo a little longer than Sesko the weekend. So speaking about Cunha and Mbeumo, Vatsa, what did you take from their performances?
Cunha's performance was particularly interesting to me because we remember that Omar Barada, who doesn't really hype up the players too much, he called him a Cantona-esque player. I mean, for a United player, compliments don't get much bigger than that. And he showed that in his very first game. Like every time the ball was at his feet, he had the Old Trafford crowd on its feet as well. So that's so important. And Amorim summed it up perfectly after the game in just 4 words: we were not boring. And a big reason why that happened was because of the 2 new signings. So early signs, and obviously the marker of the mentality will come when they struggle for a game or two and the vultures start circling. But for now, happy days.
I like putting one person on the spot every week, so I'm going to go with Jonny this week. Jonny, who's going to score more goals in the Premier League this season, Cunha or Mbeumo?
I think they're very different. I think we might get consistency from Mbeumo, where he might score for 9 out of 10 games, but I think Cunha, he showed on Sunday that he's capable of making things happen himself, so he could very easily put 3 past Fulham next weekend, and I think he'll get more over the course of the season because of that.
That's how should Amorim set up against Craven Cottage? Is there anything that he should change from that game against Arsenal at the weekend?
I was pretty critical of the team he selected against Arsenal, but they exceeded all expectations, because when you look at the team sheet, that was a pretty defense-first team sheet. Like, he dropped Ahmad and he didn't play a natural striker. So I would definitely have those 2 come in. So Benjamin Šeško and Ahmad should come in for Dalo. And I want to say Mason Mount, and I think he has to come up because there's only a limit to how much you can remain in the team on the basis of your off-the-ball work when the team is struggling to score goals. So those two changes I would definitely make. The third one, I think I'd make what Amorim want, which is get in Kobe Mainoo. For some reason, he doesn't really seem to fancy him that much, and that is worrying to me. So I'd bring in Kobe Mainoo for Casemiro, especially because if we dominate territory in possession that much, then it really doesn't make sense to have a defensive-minded midfielder next to Bruno Fernandes. So those are the three changes I'd make.
Obviously, we need to take into consideration Fulham's threat. Raul Jimenez, Alex Iwobi, Sander Berge in midfield, who United looked at in the past and has played well against United as well. I remember last season he gave Ugarte a bit of a run around, and hopefully that's not the case this weekend. But Johnny, any key to victory that we could look at against this Fulham side?
I think the key to victory would be starting Benjamin Šeško. I think against Arsenal we could see for large periods of the game we were trying to play that long ball, and Mason Mount, as good as he was at the weekend, he's not winning those balls, which just gives possession back to Arsenal. I think Fulham in particular, you need to have a physical striker up there, against Joachim Andersen, Calvin Bassey, those type of defenders. You'll need a presence up front, so I think him starting would be help us a long way to getting the win.
And I quickly get a scoreline prediction from each. So Sean, we'll come to you first. What's score going to be against Fulham?
Yeah, I was doing a bit of research before this, and we've only lost 1 in our last 19 against them in the Premier League. So that gives me a bit of confidence. However, they did knock us out of the FA Cup last year, so let's not forget that either. I'm quite confident after the Arsenal performance. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win. Sesko scores.
Come on, that's all.
I was going to go with the 3-1 win as well, because I don't think we're keeping a clean sheet with this system, at least not now, while the players get familiar with it. So I think the holy trinity of Mbeumo, Šeško and Cunha score 3-1 win for me as well.
I'll take 3 goals and 3 points. Johnny, prediction?
I'm going to go a bit bolder. Obviously, we beat Fulham twice in the league last season, and that was under Ten Hag and then the worst version of Amorim. So I think we'll beat them 4-0.
Bit more measured. I'm going to go 2-0 United. We're all going 3 points, so at least there's that. So that's our take on Arsenal defeat. And we had a quick look at the Fulham game. There's plenty of reasons to be positive. Let's not all look at this too negative. We drop points, but performances looks better. Amorim's plan is clear to see, and the only way is up. Thanks for listening. We'd like to hear who you thought stood out against Arsenal. And of course, looking on to Fulham, we'll have more content on the way. Thanks for listening to United in Focus, and you'll hear from us soon.